Hello, Brian, and thanks for inviting me to be... Wait, I'm starting over.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me. Crap.
I don't want to cough into your ears.
And clap. 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 Clap.
Okay, here goes.
Yet another year in the books here at BPS Customs headquarters. Thank you guys so much for sticking around all year, checking out the videos that I've been putting out every single week. And it is time to wrap up 2021 with our year in review. Now, unlike the last couple of years when I've kind of assigned topics to different creators to have them speak to their expertise, this year I kind of wanted to do a little something different. I wanted to leave it more open-ended. I wanted to present my creator friends with an opportunity to talk about whatever they felt was applicable for their segment and their audience in 2021. What did they think was the best thing, or the worst thing, or the most interesting product, or the best release, or the thing that caught on fire the most? So basically, I left it up to them to choose the topic and talk about 2021 from their perspective. And this is what we got. First up is peripheral reviewer extraordinaire, my good friend, and overall just giant teddy bear, Brian from Badseed Tech.
Hey there, Brian here from Badseed Tech, and I don't know about your 2021, but mine, speaking professionally, ate a bag of dicks. But for me, one of the more interesting things that happened last year was the complete breakout of the custom keyboard market. What used to be a very niche hobby exploded into the mainstream. A lot of it started in 2020 with people either working from home or just being stuck inside bored to death, and they weren't shoveling money into expensive trips or happy hour bar tabs, so they found these little rabbit hole hobbies they could go down, and custom mechanical keyboards was definitely one of those. It perpetuated a lot of content around that space, and that in turn created even more demand. It's had some benefits. The competition's really ramped up. There's more R&D out there, and there's a wider selection of products available as more and more companies try to race to profit off this market. It's traditionally a hobby that hasn't been viewed as very accessible for newcomers, mostly due to limited stock, long wait times, and the group buy production model. A lot of people still don't understand that the group buy model isn't something that was put in place to punish would-be consumers or to gatekeep normies from getting their hands on the good stuff. It's because this has always been a really niche thing. Even with design shops, most individuals don't have access to the kind of capital it takes to get something developed and refined in a factory setting, but you get a few like-minded friends to front some money, and with a little patience, you can get something made. Now, seeing the increased demand and the opportunity that creates, companies are pushing harder and harder to greatly reduce or even eliminate that wait time, and that's been both good and bad. The good is pretty obvious, as you can't buy something if there's no stock, and people generally hate waiting for anything these days. The bad is that inside a small community, there's generally an understanding that copying someone else's work is a dick move, but business as a construct doesn't really care if something's a dick move. If somebody sees a hole in the market, they're going to try to fill that hole and profit. It's opened up a big can of worms this year too about clones or copies or what constitutes a clone, etc. And it's not limited to just keycaps either. We've had whole keyboards come out that look suspiciously like other boards. On one hand, you could see it as a positive where companies with the bandwidth to be able to serve a larger market are doing exactly that. There is an unstoppable demand for this stuff right now. On the other hand, it's viewed as big companies muscling into a small community to profit off the creativity of the designers and the artists in that space. At the end of the day, it is nice to be able to get things readily, easily, and cheaper. And like a lot of things, you can vote with your wallet for the companies you think are really bringing something positive to the space and starve out the ones that are clearly just here to make a quick buck. If you haven't tried a custom keyboard yet, you should. You don't have to break the bank to do it. And luckily, nobody's found a way to make mechanical keyboards mine for crypto yet, so it is still accessible if you're patient. Hope everybody out there has a happy holiday, and thanks so much for the invite, Brian. Back to you.
Next up, we have the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who probably never met an alcoholic beverage he did not like, Jeff from Craft Computing.
Hey Brian, and thanks for having me on your year-end wrap-up video. Obviously, there's a lot we could talk about in the CPU space in 2021, with the back and forth battle between Intel and AMD finally heating back up, thanks to Intel launching their Alder Lake CPUs this last month. But I'm actually here to talk about a slightly different set of CPUs that I'm excited about. Rather, the pricing for a certain generation of CPUs on the used market. If you know me and my channel, you've likely seen a bunch of Sandy and Ivy Bridge Xeon desktops and servers pass through. And while certain budget CPUs, like the Xeon E5 2650 that I have on the board off to my right here, could be had for only around $50, there were still some higher end chips that remain out of reach for most projects. For home servers, the 2650 is still a fantastic Sandy Bridge CPU with 8 cores and 16 threads, but it only has a base clock of 2 GHz and a max turbo of 2.5. But sometimes you just need to go faster. Sometimes you need more power. That's why I am thrilled to report that the pricing floor has finally fallen out from under the higher end chips. This year, I've been able to expand my Socket 2011 CPU collection pretty substantially. There are chips like the E5 2667 V2, an Ivy Bridge CPU previously selling for around $250 each. It still has 8 cores and 16 threads like the 2650s over here, but this time around this has a base clock of 3.3 GHz and turbos all the way up to 4 GHz. Best of all, you can find these on eBay right now for only around $60 each. Do you need even more cores? How about the E5 2697 V2 with 12 cores and a base clock of 2.7? They're only $75 each right now, down from around $200 this same time last year. Of course, these are all older platforms, which is why I'm even more excited that Haswell eCPUs have also plummeted in price. That's right, DDR4 memory support and CPUs available with up to 18 cores, like the E5 2699 V3, which can now be had for under $200, versus nearly $600 just a year ago. Sure, these aren't the newest parts on the block, and any desktop CPU that's newer than Haswell or Zen Plus will easily outperform them in games. But if you're in need of a budget system, either as a desktop or a home server, these might be an excellent option to look at. So, here's to 2022. Hopefully the part shortage will ease before too long, otherwise I may not be the only tech tuber who ends every video with a beer review. Happy holidays, have a fantastic new year, and as always, I'll see you next time. Cheers, guys.
No, he will not be talking about Linux today, surprisingly, but Wendell from Level 1 Tech certainly has some interesting perspectives on this past year.
Hey Brian, thanks for having me. The most interesting thing in 2021, good or bad, technology trend. The thing that I've seen the most, the thing that I'm most optimistic about, is the adoption of self-hosting, like taking control of your own technological destiny. More and more, all of our interactions with technology as enthusiasts, I get the feeling that companies are looking at how they monetize that. It's like, ooh, it's like, I've got this remote start for my car. It's basically the same as remote unlock, but remote start requires a subscription. It's not actually, a thing. It's like having a subscription for your fridge or having to pay your door $5 to open. Enough people are getting clued into technology. There are enough people that use technology on a daily basis that they're saying, wait a minute, that's silly. Why would we do that? 2021 was a year of more, multi-billion or trillion-dollar companies fighting with one another. We get Alphabet and Disney duking it out because they couldn't agree on divvying up their customer base, who's going to get what percentage of revenue from subscribers to their service. And there's never been a better time to self-host. We've had more questions on the forum and more projects for self-hosting. You can host your own cloud, you can host your own stuff. In the march of technology, this year we've seen brand new technologies, Alder Lake and with Big.Little and new mobile technologies and new desktop processors and that kind of thing, even reaching into last year a little bit. But that also means that you can get more and more inexpensive appliances at home. A Raspberry Pi based network storage appliance is almost not an unreasonable proposition, running something like Nextcloud or other open source software so that you can be your own Google Drive, you can be your own media server, you can be your own book storage server, and there's no subscription fees. You can host that on your own home internet connection, even behind a VPN. And so I'm encouraged by this trend, one, because people are getting more clued in into what's going on, and two, that more people are willing to take control of their technological destiny and not just pay subscription fees for things endlessly, because the more it's allowed, the more it's going to happen, until the point where we literally are paying $5 to the door in order for it to open, which is from a sci-fi book. So at least I'm hoping that enough people wake up when we have enough acceleration in the open source sector, and enough acceleration, in people not willing to put up with that things change. It may be total crap, but hey, I can be relentlessly optimistic. Happy holidays.
As a big thank you to you guys for coming, watching my videos, and engaging with my content all year, and for making it about halfway through this particular video, I want to reward you guys. I've partnered with Sunny Side Up Designs to give away 2 of their awesome Meshlicious cases. One black and one white, available to anybody living in the United States or in Canada. They're going to be shipped directly from Sunny Side Up Designs. All you guys need to do is check the giveaway link down in the video description. 2 winners will be chosen at random, and that's it. Pretty cool, huh? Next up is the human embodiment of a soul patch, Paul from Paul's Hardware.
Hello Brian and Brian's viewers, and thanks for inviting me to be part of your end of the year video. I've never felt like I could do a very good job at taking an entire year and sort of summing it up and giving a final answer, especially a year like 2021, which was beset with setbacks on all sides, and at best could be described as, well, it was slightly better than 2020, I suppose. But if you're like me and you're kind of a contrarian and you're a little bit of a cynic, then you often get a little bit bogged down with negative thoughts, because that's sort of what drives that sort of mentality. But I've decided to take maybe the last year or two, which maybe have been a couple big zeros in terms of a final assessment, and sort of flip that on its head. And for 2022, I'm going to try to take those 2 big zeros and make them 2 O's that stand cheesily for obstinate optimism. And no matter what, no matter how terrible things look in terms of the GPU shortage or just things in the world in general, I'm going to try to still maintain optimism. I'm going to try to still put out positive messages, because I think that's something that us in the tech community, and just in the community of creators on YouTube in general, can try to do a good job at, is keep lifting people's spirits by broadcasting messages of hope and optimism and a better future, because we're not going to get to a better future unless we can imagine it in our minds. So that's how I'm going to end 2021. Thanks to you for being a good friend. I really hope in 2022 we also have the chance to get back together and see each other in person. But thank you again. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a wonderful 2022 to all you watching this video, and Brian, yourself in particular.
If there's a man on this panel who loves RC vehicles more than me, it's probably this next guy, Keith from PC World.
Okay, I'm gonna put that down for a minute and talk to the audience. Hey everyone, I'm Keith with PC World and of my own channel. If you want to go check that out, do your thing. But Brian invited me here to share with you guys something about 2021. Now I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that's going to be talking about trends that they liked, trends that they didn't, things that they hated, and complaining about inventory, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to talk to you guys about what has been, well, what turned out to be probably my favorite thing throughout the year, and that was my subscription to Xbox Live Game Pass Ultimate. Now, the reason why is because, well, quite frankly, the year hasn't given you a whole lot of great things, but this subscription service has given out quite a few wonderful gems. I mean, we're talking about games like The Ascent, Forza Horizon 5, Halo Infinite's campaign, absolutely wonderful. Showstoppers, wonderful. And if you're into like Metroidvania games, you got Control, you got Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I mean, come on, it gets great. And if you're one of the people stuck on integrated graphics like my work laptop, please don't tell my employer about this, but you can play a lot of those games on integrated graphics on a laptop. So if you're stuck without an upgrade and you're stuck on integrated, or you're on an older video card, you can get a lot of mileage out of this. Definitely might want to take a look at it. It's almost sounded like an advertisement, but typically whenever you find something that you really like and you want to share that with people, kind of sounds that way sometimes, but catch you guys later.
And we wrap up today with perhaps the saltiest tech reviewer on these internets, Steve from Gamers Nexus. Take it away, Steve.
Hey everyone, so Brian has me talking about the Intel side of things for 2021. Interestingly, Intel's storyline,
don't really know what's going on anymore. It wouldn't really work as a movie plot unless we're split across multiple series. And the reason is because Intel managed to make both the worst and the best processor in the same year. It actually wasn't even a full year apart. It was like maybe 8 or 9 months. Really, if you bought an 11 series CPU, I'm so sorry, because you had to watch only months later Intel's best offering in probably a decade come out, and at roughly the same prices as what you would have paid for an 11900K or 11700K or an 11600K, all of which were basically wastes of sand. Really rubbing it into the wounds, I guess. Anyway, sorry if you bought one of those. So we ran all these tests on Alder Lake and on Comet Lake and everything else before it. And Alder Lake got really interesting because it introduced P cores into E cores. So there was a massive architectural shift from where Intel had basically stagnated and stayed for, again, about a decade. Alder Lake managed to become the best on the charts for gaming performance. So Intel has clawed back what it once held as its final stronghold against AMD as Ryzen was starting to gain dominance in production workloads. So it's gained that back, but also it gained back most of the production workload chart-topping ranks, at least in our testing, where AMD has now started to slip, and especially as AMD has maybe refused or at least not had anything to offer in the sub $300 class, Intel is poised to take over that market as well. So really interesting year for Intel, because you had all that. That's the good. Then there's the not good. The 11 series was like a perfect example of, and maybe a business class, if you're taking an MBA or something, you should write one of your research papers on the 11 series specifically for sunk cost fallacy. That would be the unit of your class you could do the report on, because sunk cost fallacy, as the 11 series demonstrates, is basically this full commitment to the product where Intel was saying, we've already spent so much on it, releasing it can't possibly be worse than doing nothing, can it? Spoiler alert, it can. It can be much worse. It was bad for Intel's reputation. It was painful for people who bought it. And the CPUs, and this is the truly bad part, were actually regressive in performance, where you had the 10900K often a better offering than the 11 series CPUs that were supposed to supersede it. It had more cores and threads. None of it really made any sense. Where you got a 10-core, 20-thread former flagship that somehow managed to stay the flagship when the 8-core 16-thread 11900K, that's more expensive, came out to replace it. So really the 11 series made no sense. 10 series was far better. The 12 series has given Intel a spot back in our recommendations and the recommendations of many others. So Intel, as we said in our reviews, welcome back, and it's great to see some competition in the market again. But that's your recap of the 2021 CPU side of things. Intel made a hell of a story. We're curious to see what AMD will do now that it has been handed the ball for 2022.
I guess it's my turn now to talk about 2021, what it meant to me, to the channel, and to you guys, my audience. As you probably know, 2021 was a very uneven year for me and for the channel. A lot of ups and downs, and it seems like the general populace just was a little bit sick of watching technology videos about stuff that they couldn't get their hands on. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it was all bad. Because the standard formula wasn't really working here, it allowed me to try my hand at a lot of different things, and things that I really hadn't done on my own or ever. So things like LN2 overclocking, making a series of 4 beginner type videos, which we will continue in 2022, trying out different kinds of builds, stuff with custom fabrication like the Commodore 64 build, and just trying to branch out as much as possible, not only to see what you guys are interested in, but to see what I'm interested in. I think the experimentation and the improvisation that is necessitated by a situation like 2021 brought makes us all better as people in the long run, and that's what I'm going to take away from this year. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Links to everybody's channel who participated is down below in the video description. I want to say a big thank you to everybody who contributed. That's Steve, Paul, Jeff, Brian, Keith, and Wendell. that's about it. 2021 is a wrap. The next videos that you guys are going to see here on the channel are from CES 2022. So make sure you get subscribed if you're not already, and I'll see you then.